Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now here's your host, Bruce Hutcheon.
Welcome to, yes, a special episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Why is it so special? Because a couple of days ago, we had Diana Moeller on. She's the founder of the DC Project. And Diana asked me to get a hold of Lanny Barnes. Oakley, you'll figure out what that means in a minute. But Lynn has been a 3-time Olympian. She's a professional shooter, and she's also an ambassador for the DC Project. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Why are you involved in the DC Project?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why I'm involved, but first and foremost, Di is a very, very good friend of mine, and there isn't anything I wouldn't do for her. And two, probably big reason is because everything I've done in my life has revolved around the use of firearms. I've competed in 3 Olympics with one. I've put food on the table for my family with one. I work for a company that makes sights for firearms, high-vis, and I conceal carry, so I protect myself with one. So pretty much everything in my life revolves around the use of firearms. And I want to be able to protect that right so that other people can have the same opportunities that I have had.
Now, why did the DC Project come to life? What was the genesis of that?
Diana Moeller, she went to DC to meet with a few of her representatives, and while she was there, I think she just got the idea of, hey, why not bring more people and get more people involved in this and see if we can bring about change from a woman's perspective and show our representatives an idea of what people have as gun owners in America. A lot of people think, just rednecks running around, and it's not true. There's a big percentage of women out there that are firearms owners and everyday people, and we just wanted, her idea was to show our representatives that there's broader picture and a big face to gun owners and not just the typical stereotype.
No, as I understand from Diana, that there's a representative on the DC Project from every single state, and they're all obviously pro-gun. But when you've been there, you have been protested against. What's all that about?
Well, I think there's a lot of people, regardless of their viewpoint, they don't take the time to really research what each organization is about. I think for us, people just look at us and they say, oh, they love guns, so we don't love guns. So we need to get rid of them or protest against them. And they don't realize that, hey, we represent women from all different backgrounds, Democrats, Republicans, mothers, daughters, everything. I mean, every different kind of woman you can imagine is in our group, and supporting the Second Amendment for a lot of different reasons, whether it's personal protection or hunting competition, and I think one of the biggest ones is having that right to protect themselves and realizing that, as a woman, we may wish we were stronger than men, but just physically, there is a lot of differences, and that can help level the playing field and help us to protect ourselves in the long run.
The Constitution says that we can have guns. Second Amendment stamps that. But yet there's people out there that say, guns are evil, guns are bad, and they try to demonize women because you have them. I know my good friend Kirsty Pike, owner of Provis Hunting Apparel, I couldn't believe some of the emails that she sent me just because she would post something where she had hunted and harvested and killed something and was going to take it home and eat it and put it on the wall and relive the memories. But some of those emails were just unbelievable. Have you ever gotten hate mail like that?
I've gotten a little bit. I think I've been fortunate enough that because I competed in a sport that involves skiing and shooting, they didn't look at it as a shooting sport. So they overlooked the shooting portion and looked at it as just sport. And I think if a lot of people were to step back and look at shooting competitions as just pure sport, whether it's similar to bowling or table tennis or tennis, any sort of skill sport, they'd actually might enjoy watching it. I think with the hunting, I know Kirsty and Catherine, a lot of the women who are involved with PROAS and just hunting nationwide, they get attacked by women and men, I think, just don't understand hunting and don't realize that, hey, hunting has been something that as humans we've been doing forever. It's a way we've survived and survived evolution. And I think that a lot of people don't take the time to realize that hunting can be a way of getting in better shape, putting organic meat on the table for your family, enjoying time in the outdoors. It's not all about killing animals. It's about sharing the experiences with friends and family and challenging yourself. And, like I said, putting good organic meat on the table.
Thanks for bringing that up, because there's a big push in the hunting community right now for the 3 R's, recruitment, retention, and reactivation of hunters. And one of the biggest increases we have that we're seeing right now is the fact that people want to know where their meat comes from. And they've never hunted in their life, have no hunting background, yet they're going out and buying a license, killing a deer, killing an elk, killing a bunny rabbit, whatever, and they're feeding their family pure organic meat that they went out and harvested, processed, put up, and then cooked up and fed their family and friends. And I just think that's amazing that people are taking away the aspect of killing something to say, no, this is a natural order of things. You talked about hunter-gatherers, and that's how we've been living. That's how the human race lives. And we're finding out health-wise, it's a heck of a lot better health-wise for us than going to the store and taking some, packaged meat, food, vegetables, whatever, off the shelf and eating it. It's a lot better to be a hunter-gatherer again.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of people, as an Olympic athlete, I know probably better than most how food affects the body. And I always like to tell people, you have to treat your body as if it were like a fine automobile, like a Ferrari or something. If you put bad gas in a Ferrari, it's not going to run well. And you look at the same thing with any person. If you put junk food or processed food or say meat that has hormones and all sorts of bad chemicals and things like that in it, your body's not going to function well, and it's not going to last as long as maybe you'd want it to. So, I always stress to people that hunting is a good way of guaranteeing that the meat you're eating is pure. It's, those animals, they're eating berries, nuts, grass, really good organic food, and that translates into good organic meat. And there's nothing wrong with that. As an athlete, I saw a lot of fellow competitors that chose not to eat meat, and that's your choice. Everybody has the ability to choose, and the simple fact is that your body needs protein, and one sure way of getting good, really incredible protein is through animals, and fueled myself my entire Olympic career by eating elk and grouse and things like that.
Want to become a smarter deer hunter? Know when to hunt, where to hunt, how to hunt? Well, Deer Hunting Institute Part 1 was created to do exactly that, because many people have told me they struggle with spending all days in the wood and never seeing a deer, only shooting does and young deer, leaving the woods empty-handed way too many times. Found this wonderful, but just couldn't get on them, having difficult finding a place to hunt. Recognizing possible mistakes you're making every year. Having tried and failed to find qualified mentors who deliver results. If you had these frustrations or struggles, go to deerhuntinginstitute.com, and there you'll find a 13-module course to help you solve these problems. Again, go to deerhuntinginstitute.com and find some answers.
Now, with women being the fastest growing segment of the hunting industry, it's raised eyebrows, it's raised, manufacturers' awareness of that fact. And companies like Kirsty Pike, women-owned company, but specifically hunting apparel, even with all that positive thrust, the media still tries to demonize women, who hunt. I have a friend, Jeanette Hall, up in Alberta, Canada, and she tells me stories about emails and such like that. And then there was one company that said she couldn't put her African grips and grins, on posts anymore on social media and still be with the company. And I just look at that and I go, I don't understand that. From a women's perspective, why would companies want to demonize you?
I think it's unfortunate that happens. And a lot of people say, things are so hard for women and people of color and the LGBT community and things like that. And I always like to look at things from a different perspective and, always look at the half or the glass half full and think of how far we've come. We may not be the perfect country, but we're getting there, and I think that unfortunately, yes, women are getting demonized for, hunting and posting pictures of animals and stuff like that, more so than men, I think, because, it maybe isn't as accepted yet, but I think that we're getting there. Like you said, the women are the fastest growing segment in the hunting and shooting community. And I think are only going to continue to become a positive thing for women in the future with hunting and shooting and the fact that they can protect their families and put meat on the table for their families and, compete against the men in shooting competitions and things like that. So, what I'd say to women who are experiencing things like that, hang in there and keep doing what you're doing.
You're a person that strikes me, as we've just met, this morning. You always put the positive spin on it, take the high road, and try to reach common ground. And let's go back to the DC project. Back in November of 2018, Diana Muller was a spokesperson for Pro Gun for Time Magazine. And folks, if you haven't seen that article, just go and get it. Just Google it. November 5th, I believe it is, Time Magazine, guns, common ground, coming together. And it's trifold cover. I don't think Time Magazine ever had done a trifold cover, but there was, it was all sorts of people. And it was Time Magazine did a good job, Diana's viewpoint, of showing how far we are left and right. And then the people in the middle, they're just not educated. And one thing that the DC project wants to do is educate people. How are they doing that?
Well, I think starting by educating our representatives in DC, Senate and Congress, and talking to them about different perspectives that I guess everyday Americans have with the use of firearms. And some of the next steps are trying to work more on the state level. And for a lot of us in the DC project, some of our big goals is to bring back firearms safety and education into schools. Back when I was a kid, we had firearm safety and basically similar to hunters education in schools. And, they brought in BB guns and bows and we learned how to shoot, and we grew up with that healthy respect for firearms, and with schools completely getting rid of all those educational programs and even shooting teams and things like that. The only exposure a lot of kids, especially in big cities, have with guns is what they see on TV. And so, of course, there's going to be accidents and things like that. If kids encounter a gun, they're not going to know what to do with it and have that respect for it because they see, on TV, I just turn it sideways and pull the trigger. And I think if we can bring back education in schools, I think it'll be that much better for preventing accidents, having kids grow up with that healthy respect for firearms and not abusing it. And I want to see positive coming out of that situation.
Thanks for that. And, you mentioned about positive respect. And unfortunately, in this country, there seems to be a lack of respect for life. And I know as a hunter, you and I are both hunters, and we honor our kill. There's a great European tradition where they give the last bunch to the fallen game. And it's a tradition that's been going on for hundreds, thousands of years. And people don't get that. Why do you think people looking in at hunters don't get how important hunters are? I just heard something or read something the other day, whitetails, 100 years ago, were becoming diminished because of the westward expansion and different things. People had to eat, so they killed deer and keep killing deer. you're not going to have any deer to eat. But now, due to conservation efforts, here we are with more deer than we've ever had on the planet, really. And yet people malign me for going out and shooting a deer and eating a deer and putting a deer on my wall. Why do you think that is?
I think, like you said before, a lot of people don't understand it. Someone who has never hunted before, it's hard for them to have that perspective. And I think what a lot of people think when they think of hunters is, they're senseless murderers and they go out and they just kill animals and they don't feel bad and things like that. But I don't know a single hunter that doesn't show respect and take pause after they, take an animal's life. If you just hunt and shoot and whatever animals and not have feelings for that, there's something wrong with you. And I think a lot of people don't realize that every hunter out there really truly appreciates what that animal is giving to them, essentially life and food and nourishment for their family. And I think it's just like anything. If you haven't experienced something, it's hard to truly appreciate that perspective. There's a lot of things that, I've never done in my life. And I hope by the time I die, I can try everything, because if you don't try something and you don't know what it is, it's hard to understand it. And so what I recommend to people is go to the shooting range, just try hunting, and also go out with people that have the experience to see what it's really like.
One thing I learned a long time ago when I first started hunting, and real long time ago now, is that the Native American revered the animals they hunted because those animals' spirit was giving them life so they could live. Hunting with the Inuits up in Ongava Bay, I sat with the elders one evening and they said, the caribou come, we live. Caribou didn't come, we died. We're talking hundreds of years of verbal tradition, verbal heritage, verbal history, because they didn't write it down, but they did petroglyphs or paintings to share that heritage. But you think about that, Native Americans are so attuned to that fact, and I think hunters are really attuned to that fact also, because it's the spirit of the animal that's giving you life. So they're actually sharing their life with you. And folks, if you really get into hunting and how we live and how we're all connected, and that's where I'm coming back to the DC project, we are all connected in one way or another. And the discord we have in this country right now is ridiculous. It's just unbelievable because we are disconnected as a people. And I look to the DC project as helping remedy that. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, we're so far apart in this country right now, and it's a shame to see. Just as far as the hunting perspective, if you look back, every single person in this country, their family, I don't know how many generations back, were hunters at some point. That's just how people survived, how we've evolved as a species, is we've hunted and gathered food and things like that, and that's just been part of who we are. And it's become such a polarized thing that we can't appreciate something that was so normal back then. And it's a shame we've gone so far to the fact that we can't, a lot of people, if they had to survive out on their own, they wouldn't know how to boil water or gather food or put meat on the table, things like that, without a grocery store. And I wish people would have more respect for hunters and what they do for conservation, like you had talked about earlier. If it weren't for hunters, and especially the state of Colorado, our licenses pay for conservation, for new land for animals to roam and preserving that land and increasing the numbers. And it's pretty amazing what hunters do. And I wish people would understand that. And hopefully with more education, people will. But with the DC project, I think that Diana and her vision is really bringing a lot of light to people, light and education to people that maybe haven't had that perspective.
Do you want to become a smarter whitetail hunter, knowing when to hunt, where to hunt, how to hunt? Over the past 4 years, people have asked me, Hey, I'm struggling with spending all day in the woods and never seeing a deer, only getting opportunities at doe or young bucks, leaving the woods empty-handed too many seasons. Located the deer of a lifetime, but just flat out missed. Having difficulties finding a place to hunt, recognizing mistakes that you're making over and over again, and you want to eliminate them. Having tried and failed to find qualified mentors. Well, you come to the right place. Why? Because Deer Hunting Institute Part 1 was created by me, Bruce Hutcheon. It's a 13-module course that'll talk about being lost in the deer hunting forest, never hunted. What is a hunter? What is an adult onset hunter? What rules apply? Finding a mentor, choosing a weapon, finding a place to hunt, scouting a hunt location, stand sites, stand access and exit, reading sign, and when to hunt. All these are available for you at deerhuntinginstitute.com. Go now to deerhuntinginstitute.com and sign up for the best deer hunting course in America.
So how are they doing that? What do you do? I know you go to Washington. I know you set up interviews with the House and the Senate, our Congress. Other than that, what are the things you're doing to help get the message out?
Oh, besides the meetings, the DC project's made up of so many different kinds of women and so many different backgrounds. Everyone would think, they're probably just Republicans or conservatives. No, we have a lot of Democrats and independents and people that aren't really politically motivated, but just really appreciate the fact that we have a Second Amendment. And it's just more about spreading the word and getting the actual face of women gun owners out there and showing that we're not crazy. We're not out there to hurt people. We're out there to protect our families, put meat on the table, and I guess carry on traditions that have been part of this country for forever.
Part of the mission, the goals of the DC project, we mentioned education, representation, you just spoke to that, and then preservation. The Second Amendment is in our Constitution. There's people that would gladly confiscate my guns, your guns, right now if they could. So looking forward to the future, how do you see the DC project helping to preserve our individual freedoms granted by the Constitution?
Well, I think we're working hard to create relationships with our representatives in DC so that when a bill comes up or an issue with firearms, they can reach out to us and say, hey, what's the female gun owner's perspective on this? How is this going to affect everyday gun owners, women, things like that? Because a lot of times when a bill, say, comes up in the Senate, a lot of people don't think about the repercussions of it and how it affects everyday Americans. They only look at what it does for, say, the bad guys, the people that shouldn't be using firearms to begin with. And so it's creating those relationships and helping to educate them in how it affects all gun owners, not just women, and then bringing that around to everyone in the United States and educating people to the fact that as gun owners, we don't want mass shootings. We don't want to see anyone harmed with a firearm. But there are right ways and wrong ways of doing things. And right now, I don't think that a lot of the things that we're doing are helping to solve the situation.
Sitting here and listening to you as one that's a woman, to as somebody that knows, the highest, you're Olympian, period. That speaks for yourself. And I have thousands of listeners that are going to hear it. 20, 30, 40, up to 40% are women. So if they wanted to get involved with the DC project, how would you recommend they do that?
Well, check us out on Facebook, and I think Di has a website, pro3gunner.com, where she has the information on the DC project and how to get involved. But I think the biggest thing is we want more women to get involved, especially at the state level, and educate people in their cities, towns, and at their capitals, and show people that, hey, women that own guns aren't crazy. And we want to preserve that Second Amendment rights so that we can, not only us, but future generations can protect themselves and put meat on the table if they need to.
So what challenges do you have right now that somebody who's listening to the show could hopefully solve?
I think some of the challenges are just looking at some of the gun legislations that's being proposed and looking at it from all different perspectives. Here in Colorado, we had the red flag law, and one of the biggest things that concerns me with that is it looks and feels like it can be a good law, because it can take away guns from someone that may not be mentally sound. But look at the perspective from a woman who is trying to get away from a man or anybody that she has a restraining order against. Restraining orders, piece of paper, it doesn't really do much. And say her husband or ex-boyfriend finds out that she has a gun to protect herself. All he has to do is tell the sheriff that, oh, my wife, girlfriend, whatever, she's suicidal, and she loses. They go over, take her guns away. And at minimum, she would have 2 weeks before she could get in front of a judge to try to plead her case and say, hey, this is why I have a firearm. I'm trying to protect myself and things like that. So anytime we come up with gun legislation, it's very imperative that we look at it from all different perspectives and not just rush into passing laws and things like that are gonna affect people and hurt people in the long run. Because our goal is to make sure that everybody's safe. I think that none of us want anybody harmed with a firearm, and so we want to make sure that we're looking at everybody's and watching out for everybody's safety and livelihood as well.
So if you have thoughts about the DC Project, go to dcproject.info. It's not .com, it's .info, and check that out and reach out to them. Here's some needs that Diana shared with me. One, funding. Against some of the most well-funded people on the planet. People show up to counter rally and they get off a bus and they hold their sign and they chant and then they get back on the bus and go away. Those people, I can guarantee you, were paid to be there. They have no knowledge. They say, hey, come to this rally, pay $100, pay $50, and take you there, feed you, and then bring you home. And so, unfortunately, the opposition, and there's two polar opposites in this conversation, are extremely, extremely well funded. And because people don't want us to have this conversation today, period. They don't want us to have the liberty of speaking about gun ownership, about personal freedoms, about personal protection. So having said that, if you have the ability, please get a hold of the DC Project founder, Diana Moeller, and reach out to her and have a really meaningful discussion. Because one, this problem isn't going away. Two, women that I know are just sick and tired of being demonized, sick and tired of being targets. Just like Lanny said, in Colorado, there is a law that I could turn in Lanny, and the sheriff, a lot of the sheriffs in the counties of Colorado said they're not going to do, but they could come to her house, be within the law, statutes and regs, laws on the books, and take her guns. Because I said that she was blank, 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 with absolute no proof. That's ludicrous, folks. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, if anybody can get involved and help, I know 99% of the women are going on their own dime to DC, taking off time from work, getting babysitters for their kids, things like that, because they believe strongly in preserving the Second Amendment and making sure that they have the right to protect themselves and their families. So anything you can do to help. And like I said, have engaging conversations with your friends, your family, people that don't have the same opinions as you, and try to see, maybe you may not be able to change their mind, but see if you guys can meet in the middle somewhere and try to continue to make this world or this country great, and see if we can make it better in that we respect each other's opinions and respect each other as Americans.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show tonight. Before we go, can I take a moment and say thank you? Listen, as we started the Whitetail Rendezvous podcast journey, we had no idea what to expect. But after 4 years, we received a ton of feedback from our over 400,000 listeners and climbing to 500,000. Speaking of which, we are now closing in on over 600 featured guests. Thank you. And a quick shout out to all those who have left an iTunes review and your feedback. I get those and really appreciate it. And it's awesome to see what you have to say, and we do read every single one of them. And I just want you to know that I am incredibly grateful for your kind words regarding the show. And all of the ratings and reviews help us attract more listeners. And if you're one of those new listeners, welcome. Great to have you. By the way, if you haven't taken the time to rate and review our show and like the Hunting on Private Land strategy on how to get permission to hunt a private property, go to whitetailrendezvous.com as a special gift for just rating and reviewing our show. When you get there, look for the start button to get the details. Listen, I'll share you the top technique from some of the top hunters in the country on how do they get permission to hunt on private land. I'll share with you the exact techniques they use to get permission, as my way of saying thanks for rating and reviewing the show on iTunes. So join us next time. And remember, we're all on this journey together, learning, sharing, and becoming 365 hunters.
2020 is coming up, and this is not a paid political announcement. This is my own opinion. But listeners, get in touch with your representatives and say, I think the DC project is important to me. I vote. So let's have a discussion. Let's make it different, because I count as a woman. I count. And Donald Trump Jr., I know sometimes you listen to my show, and get this in front of your dad. Get him aware of the DC project. And there's people that he can ask to get involved, talk to Diana, because women need to be represented, period. They need to be represented. And the opposition has all the representativeness as they want with the media, because the media just flat loves them. And it makes a great story. But this is a great story about America, folks. And it's just not about the guns. Guns is a tool. And I could go into stats about murder rates and all that stuff. But guns kill far fewer people than cars and hammers and screwdrivers and other blunt weapons. But the media never tells you about that. So having said that, I'll get off my soapbox and give the show back over to Lanny. And last words, and then we're going to wrap this up, lady.
I think you made a good point about the media. And I think we need more positive stories out there, and all the positive things that people are doing with firearms. We just got back from the World Championships in Sweden, and American women went 1, 2, 3 on the podium. We swept the podium and won the team gold for USA with an AR. And you'll never hear about that in mainstream media, but the 3 of us women who swept the podium, and the 4th who helped us win the team gold, Lena Michalek, Ashley Rourke, Becky Eckley, and myself, we did something positive with a firearm, and we proudly represented our country. And I really, really hope that other women have the same opportunity to do that in the future.
And Lanny just mentioned AR. And for anybody listening and all the congressmen, AR does not stand for automatic rifle. It stands for Armor Light Rifle, the creator of that weapon. And so AR is just the name of the company that created it. And the media, get that right once and for all, please. And anyway, automatic rifles are not, those are already in the books, folks. You have to have a class XYZ federal firearms permit, to even, have automatic weapons or sell automatic weapons. So it isn't the number of laws we have in the book that's important. What's important, after talking to these 2 ladies the last couple of days and over 50 years of being around weapons, rifles, shotguns, pistols, is that I'm responsible, one, for my family. Well, I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my family, and I'm responsible for somebody that's in harm's way, period. And I said it the other day, any opponent, if you were being attacked, if your children were being attacked, I would step in the way and take a bullet and die for you, period. Now, I don't know how many people that are on your sidelines would do that. I hope everyone, but I know that isn't true because there's some people that would take a bullet for any other human being. Forget race, creed, sex, gender, sexual persuasion. It doesn't matter. There's people just like me, just like Lanny, that would do that in a second. There'd be no hesitation, there'd be no thought. We would just do that. Why? Because we value human life, period. So those are my 2 cents. Wrap up, girl, and we're out of here.
You're a great American, and like you said, there's so many of us that would be willing to protect anybody, regardless of their beliefs. And I think the world needs more of that. People just respecting other people and taking the time. If you see someone that may be struggling, who cares what kind of a person they are? Try to make their life better in some small way.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.